Hey guys, almightyzentaco here. I just want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons out there. Thank you for everything you do. You help make this possible. I've almost got enough saved up to buy Clickteam Fusion 3, which I will be buying as soon as it's released, and I'll be doing lots of tutorials for that. And in the meantime, I'm thinking about buying Game Maker 2 and doing some tutorials on that one. Let me know if you guys are interested in knowing about Game Maker 2, and perhaps I'll buy that now and go ahead and kick out some tutorials for that. Alright guys, thank you. On to the video. Disclaimer: this tutorial video is absurdly long and very complicated. Bosses, as a general rule of thumb, require a lot of trial and error, so in an effort to minimize confusion and ease your experience, I have included an index in the description with links to different parts of the video. I highly recommend that you use it. Hope you guys find this video educational. Alright guys, so this is going to be a tutorial on how to make a boss for a platformer game using Clickteam Fusion 2.5. This is going to be a bit complicated, and I was actually not too keen on making a boss tutorial because a boss is largely trial and error and is fairly complex. So I'm going to keep it relatively simple and just give you the general idea of how to make a boss. Okay, so first things first, this is using the platform movement object. I'm using that for the player. So if you don't know how to make a platformer with the platform movement object, you should go ahead and watch my tutorial for that now. It's also going to use the fine collision tutorial I made just recently for enemies. I will link that now. You should probably watch that because we are going to be using that system to control the boss. So what we have here right now is we have these, we have a room, we have a background, which is just a backdrop. Actually stole that from Adventure Time. So that's just a picture. We've got these doors, which are active objects, which are we collide with the player, so he can't go through them. And here's our boss. Okay, so the boss is going to need some alterable values. He's going to need an X speed value to control his horizontal movement, a Y speed value to control his up and down movement. He's going to have a hit point value to control obviously his hit points, and a state value, which is going to control the current state he is in. And the state is going to be what determines his behavior. So we're going to have different behaviors for this dude. So we can click on him now and see that he has multiple directions and a couple animations. He has a walking animation, a stopped animation, a bouncing animation, that's when he gets hurt, a launching animation, which I am going to have him throw an axe, so he's set up to do that, and he also has a jumping animation, which we're going to use for both jumping and falling. What we're going to do on this guy is actually make him so that we collide with the bounding box as opposed to the art. And we're going to give him a separate hitbox and have it follow him. So go ahead and make sure that you select, or rather unselect, use find detection under collisions. Alright, so let's go ahead and get down to programming. So here's all my platformer code. Oh, I forgot to mention, we also have a fireball. So let's watch and see what we have right now, what the game does. So we have this little character that runs back and forth. He can jump, he can fire fireballs, and he can jump through these platforms. He can also fall through them. So that is how the code is set up currently. It's very basic, and the boss does nothing. So we got Rhino Skull Red Dude versus Subsonic the Weasel here. And there we go. So let's go ahead and add some code. So I have a group of events here called boss code, which is going to run the boss code. And I'm going to right now set up my fine-tuned collision detection that I used in the enemy movement tutorial that I just released. So if you want to, I'm going to do this quickly, so if you want more information, you should go ahead and watch that one. I'll link it now. Okay, so what we're going to do is set up an always event. And we are always going to call some loops. First loop we're going to call is xmove, and we're going to run that only one time because we only need to run it once for the enemy, and then we're also going to run a ymove loop. So what we're going to do is use these loops to move the character around based on his x speed and y speed and check collisions. Then we're going to run a collision loop to extract him from the wall. I go into this in depth in that previous tutorial I just talked about. Okay, so on loop, xmove, we're just going to make his coordinate. We are going to set his x position to his current x position, and we're going to add the value of x speed. Now I'm going to drag this down here. So we have another on loop X move, and this time we're going to find out if the boss is colliding with the backgrounds. Go to collisions, overlapping a backdrop. If that is the case, we know he has collided with something, and we need to pull him out of the wall. So we're going to start a new loop. We're going to call it X collide. And we're going to run this, the speed, his X speed number of times. Now, the problem with this is that X speed can be negative or positive, so we want to make sure that this is only a positive number. So we're going to do absolute value of, and we're going to grab the value of X speed. Now, it's also potentially possible that X speed could be lower than 0, at which point we want to round up. So we're going to use the ceil function, C-E-I-L, and what that does is takes any fraction, like for example, if you had 1.2, it would make that 2. Floor would make it 1. Ceil always rounds up. So we started the loop X collide the number of times we need. Let's go ahead and do something on X collide. On X collide, we want to on X collide and the boss is overlapping a backdrop. We're going to want to then pull him out of the wall. And let's go ahead and copy line 22 and paste it. And we're going to also want to do something when he's not overlapping the backdrop. So make sure we negate that there. So we have one line in which on the loop X collide where we're checking to see if he's overlapping the backdrop. And on this one, we're checking to see if he does not overlap the backdrop. So on line 22 where he is overlapping the backdrop, we are going to pull him out of that wall. So we are going to set his position to his current X position. And we're going to subtract the value of, put a parentheses, and we're going to do essentially its sign, which is a function that gives you the direction of a number, essentially. I go into more detail in it in my previous tutorial that I talked about. Anyway, so we're going to subtract the value of X speed, grab it from the boss, and divide that by the absolute value of X speed. And that will give us that sign value. Two parentheses to close that off. So what will happen is if the boss is moving left, it's going to give us a negative. If he's moving right, it'll give us a positive, and we're going to pull him out of the wall according to that negative or positive value. It'll either give us a negative 1 or a positive 1. So we are pulling him out of the wall as long as he's in the wall. Now when he's no longer in the wall, we know that he is done colliding, and we want him to switch directions and stop being pulled out of the wall. So what we're going to do is, under his value of X speed, we're going to set it to its current value. So grab the value of X speed and multiply it times a -1. Essentially, we're going to invert it, so he's now going to go the other direction. And then we want to stop the loop of X collide. I said I would do this fast. I'm kind of doing this slow. Oh well. All right, so on loop Y move. What we're going to do is same thing as above, except instead of laterally or moving or horizontally, moving vertically. We're going to set his X coordinate to his current X coordinate. And we're going to add the value of X speed. Or sorry, Y speed. Obviously not X speed because we're moving on the Y. And we're also going to add to Y speed the value of 0.1. So that is going to be gravity. We're going to be pulling him down always, or rather increasing that Y speed value and making this guy move down. Okay, so we have changed the position. We are adding for gravity. Now let's go ahead and drag this here and then find out if he is colliding with the backdrop, or rather overlapping a backdrop. If that is the case, then we know that we need to pull him out. So we're going to start a loop called Y collide and do the same thing as above. All right, so we're going to run this loop Y speed number of times, but we need to modify that a bit. We need to make sure it's the absolute value. So do that, and we also want to round it up. Oops, I deleted the A there. All right, so we got ceil of absolute value of Y speed. Boom. All right, so now we gotta do something on Y collide. So go to on loop Y collide, And on this loop, if he is also overlapping a backdrop, we're going to want to do one thing and then another if he's not. So go ahead and copy and negate right there. Okay, still with me? I hope so. So on loop Y collide and he's overlapping a backdrop, we need to pull him out of the backdrop. So set his Y coordinate to his current Y coordinate and subtract the absolute value of, oh sorry, that's not correct. Subtract the value of Y speed divided by the absolute value of Y speed. Value. Close it off with two brackets. That'll pull him out the proper direction. So as long as he's in the ground, we're going to do that. As soon as he's not in the ground, we are going to set the alterable value of Y speed to 0. And then we're going to turn a flag on. So let's go ahead and make that flag 1. And that's going to be the flag that determines whether or not he is grounded. Whenever flag 1 is on, we know that he has collided with the ground and he is currently on it. When it's off, which we are going to change when he jumps, we know he's in the air. We can thereby use that to set animations. So set Y speed to 0, set internal flag 1 on. And lastly, stop the loop. And that loop was Y collide. Now, let's go ahead and we need to test this. To test this, we need to set up another event. Upon pressing a key, we'll make it space. We are going to give the value of Y speed, like we're going to set it to like -5 or something. That way we can check to see if jumping works. Also, we need to make sure this guy has an initial value for X speed. So if this works properly, he will, without animating, move to the right, bounce, move left. If we press space, he will jump. Okay, it looks good so far. And he has a jump. Perfect. Now all we got to do is set up some animations for this guy and his directions, and we're golden. We can go ahead and move on to the various states and have him do cool stuff. Let's go ahead and insert a comment. We'll call this animations. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to find out if the flag 1 is on. Where is that? If flag 1 is on, we know he's on the ground. And then if his X speed is different than 0, then we know he's walking. So we will change his animation to walking. Go ahead and copy this line, and then we're going to edit the X speed part of it. We're going to find out if it equals 0. If it is 0, that means he's not moving, so we're going to change his animation to idle or stopped. Now we want to find out if he's jumping. He's jumping when the flag 1 is off. I did that wrong, sorry. Go to him, go to flags. Is flag off? That was flag 1. That's when that happens, we know he's in the air. So we will change his animation to jumping. Let's go ahead here on line 33 where we had the test event for pressing space to make him jump. We need to also set that flag off. Now we need directions. We'll do that this way. We'll find out if X speed is greater or lower than 0. If it's greater than 0, he's moving right, so we will change his direction to reflect. Let's go ahead and copy line 32 and paste it with Control-C, Control-V, and we're just going to edit these. So if he's lower than 0, we know he's moving left, and we can edit this direction to reflect that and face left. Now it should work. Let's see. Alright, so he is animating. Let's jump. He's got a jump animation. And there we go. So, all that basic stuff is done. Awesome. Perfect. Good job. I'm going to go ahead and insert a new group of events, and I'm going to call this states. And I'll insert another group of events. And we're going to call it damage. Alright, so what we're going to do is we have it set up so if we press a button, we shoot out a fireball. We're going to find out if it collides with the boss. If it does collide with the boss, we're going to destroy the fireball. And we're going to subtract 1 from his hit point value. Let's go ahead and modify his initial hit point value. We don't want it to be 0. Let's make it like 10. We'll say we have to hit him 10 times. Actually, that's kind of weak. 20. Okay. We'll subtract 1 for hit points. Now, whenever the value of HP is lower or equal to 0, then what we're going to do, that means we're going to say he's been hurt. And it's time to animate him with the hurt animation, maybe play a sound effect, and then add 1 to his state so that we can move to another game state for him and have him do different behaviors. So we will say alterable value, add to states. We'll just add 1 to it. And let's play a sample whenever he gets hit. Okay, and when the hit point equals 0, we'll play another sample, and that's going to be a hurt sound effect. And I will change his animation to bouncing. Now we're going to want to have bouncing take precedence over all of the animations, so let's go ahead and put the stipulation in for all of these that his animation bouncing is not playing. Let's go to bouncing and negate that. And we're going to need to copy that bit of code and drop it over every line that has an animation. Wait, that's just a direction. Boom. So whenever bouncing is playing, it will not play any of these other animations. But I need to give it some frames so that it lasts for a bit. We'll give it 5 frames. And we'll give it a speed of 15. This might be a little too long. I don't know. We can tweak it. No biggie. 5. All right. All right, that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. Why did that happen? That played continually because we didn't set his hit points. So we added 1 to state, played sample hurt, and changed the animation. We need to reset those hit points so that in the next state he has a refreshed hit point counter. So set the alterable value of hit points to like, I don't know, 10. Now again, there's another thing I want to do. I'm going to insert a new active object. This is going to be our hitbox for the guy. So call it boss hitbox. Let's go ahead and make it a box. Boom. I don't know, probably be red. And we're going to stick it over the boss and size it appropriately. Ooh, I can't see. It's the exact same color. I'll make it blue. Alright, so we want to size this. I guess it's not blue. Whatever. Size it appropriately to be roughly the size of like his torso. There. And we do not want to see this, so uncheck visible at start. We'll throw this in the damage section of the game. So go ahead in there somewhere, insert a new event, make it an always event, and set the position of hitbox relative to the boss. And then over here, where we're checking on line 39 to see if the fireball is overlapping the boss, we're actually going to check and see if the fireball is overlapping the hitbox. Alright, let's try that now. Hopefully it doesn't spaz out. Now that just goes on forever. Why is that? I think that's because I looped it. Let's make sure that the bouncing animation does not loop. It does, so that's a mistake. Make sure it doesn't loop so that we can go through all 5 frames. Otherwise, he's stuck doing that forever. Yep. Okay, pretty basic. So now he's moving through his different states. Okay, now we just gotta make him do stuff on different states. Let's go ahead and give this a little more animation wait by flashing him. So go to the boss. It's under visibility. We're going to flash object. We're going to flash him really quick. We're going to say 10 milliseconds. So that's going to start flashing him. Then we want to make him stop flashing. So we're going to do that with a timer event. So he's only going to flash for 1 second. So, oh, sorry, I did that wrong. Fire event after given delay, and that'll be 1 second delay. And the event is stop underscore flash. And all we got to do is go to the timer on event. It was stop underscore flash. And what we want to do is restore the visibility of the boss. So go to visibility, make object reappear, and that will stop our flash. The thing is, you can't make a flash happen constantly. If you constantly trigger a flash, it will not happen. You need to make sure it's something that only happens once, or once every great while, not just once. But like if it was an always event, it wouldn't flash. So let's see if it works. He should flash now. Yep. There we go. Okay, so we need to give the boss the ability to hurt us. So click on... We're going to use the hitbox. Actually, I'm going to make it a little bigger. And that's what we're going to use to check collisions with our player. So we need to give the player, we need to give Subsonic the Weasel some hit points. Just call it hit points. And, I don't know, 100. And then we're going to give him an invents timer. I'm not very good at typing. Alright, so now we need to hurt the player. So, whenever this is colliding, or rather overlapping another object, and that object is going to be Subsonic the Weasel. Whenever Subsonic the Weasel is colliding with this boss hitbox, we also got to find out if the alterable value of invink, I guess that's what I called it, timer is 0. That means he can be hit again, because we're going to use an invincibility timer on this. And then we can give him some damage, set the invincibility timer up, flash him, and we're going to need to bring that timer constantly down to make this work. So this is when he gets hit. So what we're going to do is play a sample. I kind of like that boom. I'll use hurt for that. I'm actually going to change this sample here to boom, because that was way cooler. Boom. Alright, so we're going to play this hurt sample. We are going to start flashing him. Flash object. Going to make him flash every 5 seconds, or 5 milliseconds, really fast. We are going to subtract his health. I don't know, we're going to... Oh, I did set. I want to subtract, it's easier. Go to alterable value, subtract from HP. I'm going to make it 10, so he can get hit 10 times before he dies. And then we need to set the value of invink timer to something, and that's how long he's going to be invincible. This is in milliseconds. We want it to be over a second, so we'll say 100. I believe this game is running at 60 frames a second, so that should be a little over 1 second. Then we need to, as long as the value is greater than 0, we need to bring it down. So compare to invink timer. If it's greater than 0, we need to subtract 1 from it. And then, if it equals 0, then we can stop flashing the guy. So, compare to invink. If it equals 0, go ahead to the player sprite and go to visibility and make object reappear. Let's see if I can get hurt. Yep. Now this is just a example game, so nothing flashy is going to happen. So to kill this guy, we're just going to find out if his HP is lower or equal to 0, and then we're just going to destroy him. That's it. Just gonna destroy. That's the point at which you would obviously want to create some like effects, maybe shake the screen, and probably, you know, instigate your respawn code, whatever you got going on for that. But we're not gonna put anything in here for that because this is just a little boss tutorial. Okay, for state 0, we're not gonna have anything special happen. He's just gonna wander around like he does. Alright, so now we're going to have him do something when he's in state 1. I think I'm going to make that be a charge, and what he's going to do is he's going to run in place, and then depending on whichever direction the player is from him, he's going to charge at the player, hit the wall, probably going to do a screen shake, and then have the, I don't know, debris fall from the ceiling that can kill you, that can hurt you. So, real easy. Let's go ahead and give this boss hitbox a qualifier so that we can have other objects that are also sharing this qualifier, and all these objects will hurt us. So we're going to go ahead and give him the enemy qualifier. So go ahead and do that now. Where is that? Right there. And let's insert an active object. Let's go to the beginning here and uncheck created start. Let's make it bigger. Let's give it a Y speed value. And we're going to make this, I don't know, just some rock, some random rock with really bad art because I don't feel like drawing it. This is all just a stand-in for your boss game. That'll work. We're going to call it Debris. Okay, here's how we're going to do this. So, we got the states here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out if the enemy value of state equals 1. So that is the second state. We're going to do something every so often. So we'll say every, I don't know, 5 seconds. Hopefully that's not too long. Every 5 seconds. So what we're going to do is first we're going to change the alterable value of X speed to 0. So we're going to make him stand in place. This would be a good time to also play like a charge up sound effect. I don't know if I have one. Let me see. Okay, we're going to use that for some kind of charge up sound effect. You could also have him do like a run in place animation, but I'm not going to draw one. So what we're going to do is every 5 seconds we're going to play this sound effect. Set his speed to 0 so he will stop moving, and we're going to do a timer event. So fire event after given delay, and we'll give him 1 second. So that's 1 second of running in place. We're going to call this event charge. So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to do the on event, and that was charge. And we're going to have 2 events based on where the player is in relation to this guy. So add some more information here. We're going to find out if the position, the x coordinate of the player object is lower than the x coordinate of the monster. If that's the case, then he is to the left. And what we're going to do is set on a flag. We'll make it flag 2 because we're not using that currently. We need to give him a x speed. So since we need to be charging left, we're going to make this like -8 or 6. Maybe you can get out of the way of a -6. We kind of want to make it a certain speed where the player might be able to get out of the way if he tries really, really hard. All right, so the flag is on and he's moving at -6. Go ahead and just copy this event and paste it, and we're going to edit this to find out if the x speed of, or sorry, the x position of the player is greater, meaning he's to the right. And then what we're going to do is everything is the same except we're going to set the x speed to 6 instead of -6. So now he's going to charge to the right. So now we need to have a specific collision for when the flag 2 is on, because that means it is not just a normal collision. He is also running at the wall. So something extra needs to happen. We need to play a sound effect and do the wall shake. So that's going to be X collide, and he is not overlapping a backdrop. So copy line 23. And the reason we're doing that is because that's the one where we've already pulled him out of the wall completely. What we want to do is play a sample. We'll play boom. It's a pretty loud sound effect. We need more values to do a screen shake. So I will just make this a global value. And we will call it, I don't know, we'll just call it amp. So we're going to use amp to shake the screen using a screen shake. You can watch my screen shake tutorial if you want more information. All right, so what we need to do is play that sound effect. Set the global value of amp to something. So set it to like, I don't know, 50. So we played our sound effect, set it to 50. Then we want to set his alterable value of x speed to something. We want to reverse it, but we don't want it to be like super big. So we're going to do what I said before with the formula for sine. So we're going to get the sine of this value, which is going to be the value of x speed divided by the absolute value of x speed. And that's going to give us a negative 1 or positive 1 based on which direction he's going. Then we're going to multiply that by 2, so he will be going now either -2 or +2 in the opposite direction of where he was going initially. Actually, no, sorry. Times a -2. That's what we need to do. All right. Let's insert a group of events and call this camera. This is going to be really simple. What we're going to do is always center horizontal position in frame relative to the x coordinate of our player plus our random, and then we're going to need to grab the value of amp, which was amp. This is called amp because it's a global value, times a -1 and just plain old amp. And that will give us a nice shake if amp is currently greater than 0. Now we need to do the same thing for y, so go to scrolling, center vertical position in frame, get the y coordinate of this dude, and add same thing, our random amp times -1 amp. And we also need to always be bringing amp down to a negative if it is greater than 0. So find out if amp is greater than 0, which is a global value. Compare, is amp greater than 0? If so, then we need to subtract 1 from it. Subtract 1 from amp. Okay, we've got a problem, and that is that we have a single screen here, so there's no room to shake. So I need to make this frame a little bigger. I'll make it 2000 by 1500. Forgot to make sure, over here on line 23, we want to make sure that the flag is on, flag 2. So is flag 2 on? Flag 2 was the flag that lets us know that we are doing the charge. Let me readjust my frame a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and really quick throw this backdrop into the background and make it not scroll to another frame. So, or rather, another layer. We'll throw it in layer 2. Switch these around. Boom. Okay, so layer 1, not 2. And we're going to give it a 0 scrolling coefficient. And I'm going to stick it in the corner. So now we should always have that background visible. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Perfection. Okay, so let's see what happens. So we are playing the boom sound, setting the amp to 50, setting the x speed to this x speed times a -2. So we're pulling out of the wall, turning them around, stopping the x collide code. Okay, let's check it out. We should be able to get him. He didn't run. What's he doing? On timer charge, X position. Oh. Okay, we had an error on line 39. We need to make sure we check both X positions of the player sprite to make sure that he is both either to the left or the right. I had it set to equal X, not lower than X or greater than X. So let's try it now. Actually, I don't like where this screen is positioned, so I'm gonna modify that. We're gonna center the Y at all of this doohickey. We're gonna center the Y at all this, but we're also gonna subtract. I'm gonna put it in parentheses, and I'm gonna subtract like 100 from it. That way, it's got a nice offset. All right, let's test it again. I think we can do better. We'll make it 200, or yeah, 200 instead of 100. So we're going to set the Y position to the Y of the player sprite plus the R random amp times -1 and amp. And we're going to put that all in parentheses and then subtract that value, 200 from that value, giving us an offset and the potential for a screen shake. There, that looks good. Okay, so now he's in state number 1. That was crazy. Okay, it's a little broken. Okay, we forgot to do one thing on line 23. We need to turn off flag 2 after he hits the wall. So go to flags, set off flag 2. If we don't do that, it'll trigger this a bunch, and we don't want that to happen. We want it to trigger only once. So it'll pull him, it resets his speed to either -2 or 2 and turns the flag off. Let's go ahead and make sure everything's in the right order. Stop loop X collide needs to be the last thing that happens. Let's test him out and see. Okay, boom, that worked. Now he's in stage 1, so he should be charging in our direction. Yep, and that hits the wall, and then he'll do it again. Okay, go back to where we collide with the wall. That was here, line 23. We also want to start a loop. We're going to call that debris. And we're going to run it random 10 times. We're going to insert a new object. I'm going to call this debris spawner. And I'm going to put this at the top of the screen, right here. And I'm going to make it invisible at start because I don't want anyone to see it. Okay, so we are also going to be starting this loop debris random 10 times. Make sure you start the loop debris before you stop the loop X collide, otherwise it will not trigger. So let's go ahead and put this down in the states, and I'll just insert this now. And it's on loop debris. We're going to create an object, and that is going to be the debris. And we're going to create it relative to the debris spawner. Okay, and then what we're going to do is give it a random X position. After it already has been set, we're going to give it a random X position. So set the X coordinate to its current X coordinate plus R random. So this is going to give it a random range. We're going to say -400 to 400. So this will be within 800 pixels of its original position, either -400 to 400. Okay. Now the debris, we'll just go ahead and put this here. We'll make an always event. We are always going to add 0.1 to the Y speed of our debris. And we're always going to set the position of our debris on the Y-axis to its current position plus Y speed. So we're going to be moving it down. So every time he slams into the wall, it's going to create debris that can hurt us. Let's see if it works. Debris didn't hurt us, and the reason it didn't hurt us is because we forgot to edit the damage code. So the damage code was the boss hitbox overlapping the player sprite. We need to edit this. It needs to be the enemy type overlapping the player. Boom. And we got to make sure that we give the debris the qualifier of enemy or this won't work. And there we go. We're done. Perfect. Now we need to come up with a stage 2. Or state 2, rather. So compare two states, and it equals 2. So now this will be what we want to do in state 2. And what I'll do is I'll have a random event. We'll say on the special object, X out of Y chances. We'll say 1 out of, I don't know, 100. So every 1 out of 100 chances, we want to set his X speed to 0 and then set his animation to throwing, to launching. Now we need to have an animation stipulation here for whenever he has the idle animation. We want to make sure that animation throwing is not playing. So go on to his animations, select which animation is playing, and select launching, because he's not going to be moving left or right. I want to negate that. But he isn't going to have an X speed. So if we didn't do this, it would just default to the stopped animation. Okay, so now he is going to, in stage 2, now he's going to throw randomly. Oh, he just keeps, he seems to throw a lot. In this state, let's have him always face the player. We'll just say look in the direction of, and we'll say relative to the player. Let's see if that works. It does work. Look at that. Okay, so I have an axe I'm going to throw in this game. We're going to have him toss the axe. So insert an object. Make sure you put it on the right layer if you are using multiple layers. So let's insert an active object. This is going to be axe. I have art for this, so I'm going to import it. And we're going to need 2 directions for this axe. Boom. And I'm going to need to center its hotspot based on the handle, because that's where I want it to rotate from. We're going to rotate this thing and use it as a projectile. Okay, so now we're going to launch an axe. So what we're going to do is on state 2, 1 out of 100 chances at random. I'll actually make this 1 out of 200. And you can tweak this to your heart's content. This is just what I'm using for my example. We are going to set his X speed to 0 and change his animation sequence to launching, which is the throwing animation. And then we're going to have him look at the player. Okay, so let's do this. Let's find out if his animation is finished, and that was launching. Then what we're going to do is, actually we need 2 of these. So we're going to find out if he is facing left. So go to compare direction, and we'll check left first. I guess we could have done right first. It doesn't really matter. What we're going to do is create an object. It's going to be an axe, and we're going to throw it. Now, I have an axe object here in the game, and we do not want to create this at start, so go to the play options, uncheck create a start. Now this is going to need an X speed value. I spelled that wrong. XSPD. I guess it doesn't really matter how you spell it. Whenever this animation is over, the throwing animation is over, so it has an animation finished, and that's launching. We need to do this one for each potential direction, and his direction is any of the left directions. So let's go to direction, compare, and we're gonna pick, like, not up and down, but all of these possible directions, because it is possible that the player will be, you know, not directly left. When that is the case, boom, we are going to create the axe relative to the monster, and since it needs to go left, we are going to set the X speed to a -8. Okay, so copy line 44, paste it, and edit the direction facing. We want to have the opposite direction, so these directions, if it is any of these directions, we are going to set the X speed to 8, because we need to go right. Okay, now we need an always event where we set the position of our, no, not swap. We need to set the X coordinate of our axe to its current X coordinate plus, and we need a value, and that value is his X speed. And then we're also just going to spin it constantly. So just set the angle to its current angle. And just add like 50. We want it to spin really fast. 1 for high quality. Let's find out. He's just stuck. Okay, one last thing we need to do is whenever the animation is over, we also want to give him a movement speed again. So set the alterable value of x speed to, I don't know, r random, and give him like a -2 to 2 value. So he can move. I need a comma. I've been doing this tutorial forever. It's like a 2-hour tutorial. Just grab that and drag it down. All right, so now he should bounce around between states. What's he doing? There he goes. Okay, so that works. Now we need another one. We need him to hop around for state 3, so we'll just go ahead and say, does the value of state equal 3? And then we will say insert group of events, 1 out of every, I don't know, 100, just to be whatever. You'll tweak this in your own game. What we're going to do is really simply, we want to make sure he's on the ground as well. And if you remember correctly, that was flag 1. So is flag 1 on? If so, he's on the ground. Then we're going to make him jump. So we will say set alterable value of y speed to like -5 and set flag 1 off. Set off flag 1. All right, so that's state 3. Let's get him to state 3. State 1. 2. One more to get to state 3. All right, now he should be jumping at me. There, he's jumping. He's not moving forward, though. Oh, it's because he was stopped initially. All right, so we need to give him a movement speed if it's 0. So we will say alterable value if state equals 3. So we're in the 3rd state. We want him to always move in the 3rd state, so we're also going to find out if his x speed happens to be 0, which can happen depending on when he switches states. And then what we want to do is set the x state to a random value. And we'll say r random -2 to 2. And if it gives us a random value of 0, we will again obviously re-roll until we don't have 0. So now in this state, he should Yep, now he's jumping around at us. Alright, so now I'm going to create a health bar for the enemy. And I'm just going to make this an active. We're going to call it health bar. I'm going to make it a red bar. I want to make sure that the hotspot is on the left, though, because that's where we want to draw it from. And this is going to be full. We don't want this thing to move with the frame, so we're going to go to the play options and uncheck follow the frame. We want it to stay in its current initial position. Going to insert a new event, and we're going to say always, and we're going to set the scale of this thing, its X scale, to the value of health for the boss times 0.01. I think that should do it. 1 for maximum. Now I'm going to tweak the way that that this works, that all of these states work. So currently we did this thing where we damage him, and if it's 0, then we change the states, blah, 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 blah. We're not going to do that. We're still going to make it hurt him, only when you get 10. Alright, so to make this bar work, we need to give this player, or rather this boss, not the player, another HP bar called HP2. And this is going to be his 10 times 10 is 100. So that's going to be his total HP that we're going to pull down every time we get to a new state. So we're still going to jump states whenever we get down to 0 like we did before. So here's what we're going to do. Under damage, whenever the HP equals 0, we're also going to subtract 1 from HP2. Whenever HP2 gets to 0, we're going to kill him. Okay? We need to scale the bar of the boss's health to reflect the HP2 number. So we're going to create a always event. And that's going to be, we're going to set the scale, the X scale of our health bar to the value of HP2. We need it to be times 0.1, I think. Alright, so whenever we attack the guy, I'm going to change this as well, too. Whenever the health is 0, and we were adding 1 to states, what we're going to do is replace that with this. We are going to set the alterable value of state to a random value to give him a random state. And that starts at 0, so we can do that. It was 4 states, I think we have. 0, 1, 2, 3. So random 4. Also, we are going to just give him a random state every now and then. So, 1 out of every 1,000 times, we are going to set his state to random 3. Wait, how many states do I have? I have 0, 1, 2, 3. I need random 4. I'm sorry. Set it to random 4 because we have 4 states. That'll give us 0, 1, 2, and 3 as our potential states. Where was that other thing I need to change? This is such a mess, guys. This is the worst tutorial I've ever made. I'm so sorry. This is why I didn't want to make this. I knew this was going to be a nightmare. Alright. Set HP, or set states to random 4. Okay, that worked. Now he's jumping at us. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is give this guy a cool explosion effect whenever he's dying. Okay? Perfect. So, here's what we're going to do. We are going to create a new object. It's going to be an explosion object. So just insert an active. I'm going to do this really lamely because this tutorial is taking freaking forever. All right, FX, explode. I'm just gonna boom, and I'm going to make this like 5 frames. All right, so we're gonna start with a red. Okay, so that was our really terrible explosion. It's gonna be like 30 frames. What we want to do is down here, whenever the animation is over, we destroy it. So, as an animation finished, stopped, yes, destroy. That's just an effect that's going to explode. Alright, under damage, that's where I'm going to put this because it makes the most sense. Go to the boss, find out if HP2 is lower or equal to 0. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set his X speed to 0, so he can't move when that's happening. And then we are going to set X speed to 0. Set a flag on. We'll set on flag 10, whatever. Alright, find out flag 10 is on. It really doesn't matter what flag. We're just going to use a flag. Where's your flags? Christian, why are you yelling, dude? Alright, flag. Is flag 10 on? That means he's blowing up. Yes, we also want to find out if... Alright, we also want to do an every event because we don't want this to happen constantly. So every 1 second, what we're going to do is create the FX explode relative to our boss. And then we're going to give it a random offset. So set its position x coordinate to its current x coordinate plus our random negative 200 to 200. Okay, so that works. And then we want to set the y position to the same. So position set y coordinate y coordinate to its current y position, and then plus our random. So we got this random offset thing going on. Okay, this too here, we want to add a limit condition to it. Run this event once. We don't want this to happen more than once. We only want to trigger his destruction once. And also when we trigger his destruction, we want to flash him. So go to visibility, flash object, and we will flash it every 5 milliseconds. All right, so when this thing kicks on here, when he's dying... Oh, no, that's wrong. Put that in the wrong spot. Under line 60, that's where we want the flash to happen. So visibility, flash object, and we're going to say every 5 milliseconds. Okay, so we're actually going to have to make another event. So insert a new event, and this is going to be if the alterable value of hit points 2 is lower or equal to 0, we want to set his x position, or rather his x speed to 0. We need this to happen constantly, not just once. And then we also want to set his state to something that we don't have currently so that he doesn't do anything special. So like set it to state 10. So now he's just going to stay in state 10 whenever he's blowing up, which is a state where nothing occurs. He's going to start flashing, and then we're going to be making him explode. So, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and also in the event line 61 that we run only once, we want to trigger a timed event that's going to destroy him later. So, fire event after given delay, we will let him explode for 3 seconds. And it is kill boss. So, on event kill boss, we're just going to destroy him. On event kill boss. We are going to go to the boss and click destroy. One last thing. Again, let's find out if the hit points 2 is lower or equal to 0. And we want to find out if a sample is not playing. Sorry, that's wrong. We want to find out if a specific sample is not playing. And that's boom. If boom is not playing, we are going to play boom. So boom will play constantly whenever he's dying. Let's check and see if it worked. We need to lower how often this happens, the explosion. We're going to say every like 10 milliseconds. And I'm just going to go ahead and give him 0 health at the beginning. So he should explode right away. There we go. That's kind of what we wanted. It wasn't great, but it works. Alright, let's go ahead and see what this boss does. Let's make sure that the states are right. Phew. And we died. Okay, so that is it. Guys, I am really sorry this tutorial took freaking forever. I'm going to do my best to edit this thing down so it's not just a monster. I am going to leave this code in the description down below, as always, so you guys can take a look at it and try to figure it out yourselves. It's not perfect. It's not even good, to be honest with you, but a boss takes a ton of tweaking, and this gives you the general idea of how you can set up different boss states and then switch them around and have the boss do different things like smash into a wall, jump, throw an axe, etc. So I hope you guys found this video, this tutorial useful. If not, yeah, I'm really sorry. I know I tried my best. I know it wasn't that great. Yeah, so I'm gonna start doing some more gameplay videos, probably one right after this, because I'm stressed out. So all right, guys, as always, thank you for watching. More videos to come, and leave your questions and comments down below, and join my Discord channel, description, or link in the description. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next video. Peace out.